Testing for YouTube. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, welcome everyone. We will call to order our regular meeting of council and start by recognizing that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded traditional territories of Sechot and Hupachessit First Nations. Council, we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items to add? Seeing none, are there any late items from our corporate officer?
No late items, Madam Mayor.
Then would somebody like to move approval of our agenda? So moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And we have minutes from the special meeting held and the regular meeting held on November 12th, 2024. Moved to adopt by Councillor Solda.
Just an error in the minutes.
Oh, that's right on you.
In my council report, it states that I was at the Remembrance Day ceremonies, but I was ill and I did not go. So throughout all those reports, we'll say Councillor Solda was at the Remembrance Day. I was in bed instead.
You were there in spirit.
Yes,
but we
I
will
was
note
very
that
much
correction.
in spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, would you like to move to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Solda. She always moves to adopt the minutes. Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And delegations, we have just one today, and that is an introduction of our new Deputy Director of Corporate Services. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So today I am thrilled to welcome Kim Modiak as the city's new Deputy Director of Corporate Services. Kim hails from Alberta and has already mentioned that she is not missing the snow and had a wonderful drive-in today. She has been in Nanaimo for the last 3 years, I think that's correct, and comes to us with a love of policy work and records management. Welcome, Kim, and with that, I'll pass it over to Council.
That is wonderful. A love of policy work and records management, I think probably doesn't necessarily relate with a lot of people, but some, and I can share that for sure. So appreciate that very much. Welcome to the community, and we're very thrilled to have you. I'll just pass it over to you if you want to just tell us all about yourself, and then Council for any comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council, I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to work with this team, and I'm very much looking forward to ingraining myself in the work.
Wonderful. Welcome to the community and to the city of Port Alberni. We're looking forward to working with you. Thanks. Okay. All right. And unfinished business, we have just one item, which is the 5-year financial plan Q&A summary. Council, are there any questions, comments? This is a standing item on our agenda during budget time. Okay. Seeing no comments, we'll move on to that. On to bylaws. We have the 2024 to 2028 financial plan amendments and recommendations from the November 18th Committee of the Whole meeting.
Through the chair, I think we had a thorough conversation at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and the recommendations are for services that we were already approved through the budget, just not the allocation of where the funding was coming from. So with that, I think we're good to continue with the motion unless there's additional questions.
Great. I'll go to Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would you like to do this individually?
I think if council is okay with doing them as a whole, we can do that. If anyone requests they be done individually, we can make that change. But not seeing that, then I'd go ahead altogether.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Council of the City of Port Alberni amends the City of Port Alberni 2024-2028 Financial Plan Bylaw number 5097-2024 as follows. 1. Line 22121 Police Services Contracts. A. 2025 from $7,622,452 to $7,905,555. B, 2026 from $7,875,460 to $8,247,382. C, 2027 from $8,141,534 to $8,530,188. D, 2028 from $8,401,662 to $8,839,271. 2, line 27600, Vancouver Island Regional Library, 2025 from $1,265,788 to $1,139,722. 3, line 27530, Industrial Collections, Alberni Pacific Railway Insurance and Contingency allocating $60,000 from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Reserve. A, 2024 from 40,657 to 100,657. And 4, 2024 Capital Plan Cultural Services Project Athol Street Rail Crossing allocating $95,500 from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Reserve. So in that line, it would be from $0 to $95,500.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Discussion on these items? Okay, seeing no discussion, additional to what we've already had, of course, at the Committee of the Whole. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 2, we have City of Port Alberni 2024 to 2028 Financial Plan Bylaw Amendments 5097-1 2024.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the financial plan is in front of council for amendment today and consideration. These are all the amendments, including the amendments that were just approved through resolution here. And the plan, the consolidated bylaw now reflects those changes. And if we move forward with any additional questions or additional information that needs to come forward, if this isn't brought forward with the 3 readings today, we'd have to schedule an additional meeting in December to undertake those changes. But a lot of these resolutions have been summarized throughout the whole year, and this is just taking the amendments that were made and finalizing for 2024.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dane, would you read these?
Nice. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the City of Port Alberni 2024 to 2028 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 5097-1 2024 be now introduced and read a first time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dane, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And if you'd like to continue.
I move that the City of Port Alberni 2024 to 2028 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 5097-1 2024 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Dane, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed, and go ahead.
And I move that the City of Port Alberni 2024-2028 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 5097-1 2024 be read a third time.
Moved by Councillor Dane, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on this, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. Item number 3, we have Fire Control Bylaw, and this was a recommendation as well from the November 18th Committee of the Whole meeting. And I will go to Councillor Haggard to read the first one, and then any questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Fire Control Bylaw number 5122, 2024 be now introduced and read a first time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Are there any questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Haggard?
I'd like to move that Fire Control Bylaw number 5122, 2024 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
I'd like to move that Fire Control Bylaw number 5122, 2024 be read a third time.
Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And last in bylaws, nuisance abatement bylaw number 4705-3, amendment and recommendation from the November 18th Committee of the Whole meeting. And I will go to Councillor Solda if you want to read this.
Madam Mayor, I move that the City of Port Alberni Nuisance Abatement Bylaw number 4705-3, 2024 be now introduced and read a first time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Haggard. Are there any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Solda.
I'll move that the City of Port Alberni Nuisance Abatement Bylaw number 4705-3, 2024 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And C, finally, I move that the City of Port Alberni Nuisance Abatement Bylaw number 4705-3, 2024 be read a third time.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And correspondence for action. We have 2 items today. The first one is a letter dated October 31st, 2024 from the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District requesting council approval for a regional grant application to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Emergency Preparedness Program Fund. Councillor Patola, would you like to read this?
Madam Mayor, I move that council for the city of Port Alberni agree to provide approval for the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District, ACRD, to apply for the Union of BC Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund for the Emergency Support Services Equipment and Training Grant, and therefore authorize the ACRD to apply for, receive, and manage grant funding on behalf of the city of Port Alberni.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Solda. Are there questions or comments on this item? And we've done this before with the regional district on this item. Okay, seeing no comments then on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 2, we have a report dated October 7th, 2024 from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy providing the 5-year Bear Smart Renewal Review. And Mike, did you want to speak to this item at all just for information?
Sure, thank you. The city of Port Alberni has been a member of the Bear Smart program for several years. And, you know, we work with conservation officers and the Bear Smart program to try and be bear aware and, you know, look at different techniques to stop human-animal confrontation. So that's really the summary of it. Through this report, it shows some areas that the city could improve in, and that is included in reporting. And administration is working to update that to make sure we remain in compliance with this.
Wonderful, thank you. Councillor Mealy, would you read this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council receive the 5-year Bear Smart Renewal Review dated October 7, 2024 from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments on this? Yeah, Councillor Mealy.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in my previous time on council, I was part of the Bear Smart program, and I'm just really happy to see us have a renewal. And the people are still doing the right things in the community. It just needs to be reported to the government in the right way. So, but I'd still like to say that we're pretty bear aware in this area. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you. So with that, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. No proclamations today, so on to correspondence for information. I'll go to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So today we have a news release from the ACRD for the preliminary 2024 referendum results from Bamfield for the sewer. We have the Medical Health Officer's newsletter from Island Health, Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions in follow-up to the UBCM convention, and the grant in lieu of property tax payment and report from the Ministry of Citizens Services.
Thank you. Any items councillors would like to speak to? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt? Motion to receive from Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame, and seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. We have no report from in camera, so we'll move on to council reports. Would anybody like to speak to items other than the comments Councillor Solda has already made? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to send my congratulations to Major Michael Ransby for being awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal. It was given to him at the Salvation Army kickoff dinner by our MP Gord John, so congratulations. And I just want to let the public know that Mayor Manions and I will be ringing the bells at the kettles on December the 6th from 10 to 12 at No Frills. So please come by and say hi and bring your money. Thank you.
One of our favorite annual events every year. Any other items councillors would like to speak to? Okay, seeing none, I'll move receipt of council reports. Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to new business. Item number 1 is our flag policy, and this is the recommendations from the November 18th Committee of the Whole meetings for updates. Councillor Dame, would you like to read this one?
Madam Mayor, I move that council for the city of Port Alberni rescind the flag policy dated May 9th, 2011.
Moved by Councillor Dame, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, maybe staff could explain why we have a flag policy, because a lot of people don't understand what it's all about, and maybe we could explain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reason we have a flag policy, we follow the national regulations. And so it regulates all use of and display of city flags inside and outside city facilities and ensures that we remain in conformance with those accepted national protocols.
Thank you. And is it clear, just the rescinding of the old policy and not council adopting a new policy? Did you want to speak to the difference there?
I'd be pleased to. Thank you. So we have council rescinding the policy as the new policy that came forward is now under sign off by the Chief Administrative Officer.
So it's not that we're getting rid of a policy and not putting a new one in. It's just a council policy versus an administrative policy. Okay. Motion has been moved and seconded. Seeing no more comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 2, we have the Echo Aquatic Center operations report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before I turn it over to our Manager of Recreation Services to walk council through extending our operating hours and our plans for swimming lessons starting in the new year, I wanted to loop back to the discussion at the November 18th Committee of the Whole meeting about budget. So my intent here is to give council transparent information, not to instill fear, but want to make sure we're all clear about some of the potential implications. So I'd like council to please keep in mind that if we don't budget properly for preventative maintenance in our facilities, it could result in extended facility closures. So in the case of the aquatic center, it would impact swimming lessons and the public program schedule. So our efforts to return to daily operation could then be squandered. A reminder as well to council that the equipment at an aquatic center is not found on the shelf at our local hardware store. It's not a situation where we can have good-ish equipment here in Port Alberni. Each component must be ordered in advance and refurbished or fabricated elsewhere in the province. So there isn't access locally to the components we would need at our aquatic center. And finally, since we're decades past the useful life of our aquatic center, our timelines are completely unknown. So I'd love to think that we're not on borrowed time here at our aquatic center, but since other pools don't operate for 57 years without major renovations or replacement, there isn't data that would indicate how long a chlorinated, saturated environment can last before that catastrophic failure. So again, intent is not to fearmonger, just wanting to make sure council's aware that what are the implications if we look to adjust budget. So wanted to make sure council was clear on that. And I would like to turn it over to our Manager of Rec Services to update you on extending our hours of operation and our swimming lessons.
Thank you. So over the past year, council has asked about extending hours. Community has also expressed a concern regarding the hours. And so we provided some information, cost, expenses, and potential revenue for expanding our hours on Saturdays, Sundays, and Monday through Friday. So as an example, if we were to open up on Saturdays between 2:30 and 8:30, we'd be looking at 4 to 5 lifeguards needed. Sundays, 8 to 4, 5 to 6 lifeguards plus swim instructors, 2 to 3. And then Monday to Friday, 1 to 4 would need 2 to 3 lifeguards. And so the total cost for that when we were ready to staff lifeguards and swim instructors would be approximately $110,000 a year. With a potential revenue of about 10% of that, about 11,000. So still a cost recovery, a small cost recovery, but still a cost to taxpayers. Oh yes, sorry, if we add lessons in, on Sundays it'd be 2 hours, but we've also have found some ways to expand lessons in January during the week as well as on the weekend to help alleviate some of the pressures and interest in swim lessons.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from council?
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the cutback in hours, that happened after COVID? It wasn't really a result of COVID, but a result of just not having employees, is that correct?
Correct. So in October of 2020, we had recalled staff who were laid off, and we had reduced hours at that time. And then throughout the next 2 years, we had difficulties offering courses, as well as had some staff move on. And so we've been working to offer the lifeguard training courses in-house, as well as promoting courses here on the island. And so in October 2022, we did cut back on our hours because we did not have enough staff to properly operate the pool. And so reduced hours Monday to Friday, closed on Sundays, and then in January 2023, we closed at 2:30 on Saturdays.
And can you, Madam Mayor, could the council be informed how much the budget for the pool has been reduced in the years of 2022, 2023, and 2024?
So, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't have the information in front of me. I'm not sure if our Director of Finance has it at close grasp there.
Oh, Madam Mayor, maybe you don't have dollars and actual dollars and cents, but you are the manager of the pool. You should at least know whether the budget's been reduced and by an approximate number without having to go to the manager of finance. I'm wondering if you could at least let us know in round numbers what the budget's been reduced by.
Mike?
Yeah, through the chair. That's an interesting question. I don't have the exact figures on me, but I know that if the pool was closed, we would have reduced the hours. Our software through our how we budget for staff time is that we do reduce the amount of full-time equivalents or the hours present. So that would be reflected, and I'm sure that that is how the manager and the director of Parks, Rec and Culture came up with the 110,000, was looking at the hours of the staffing going back into the pool to have it open for those hours. That's what we would need to cover that staffing and to operate the pool properly. So I would guess that there was a reduction of similar amounts in the pool, but I do see the director of finance wandered up. I'm not sure if, I think he has a little more information for you.
So, Madam Mayor, it's one of those things that we were looking at as far as what we had planned in 2020 before we looked at the operations ceasing and pausing. In 2024, and this is what we're looking back at, and we've had quite a few changes over the years as far as what we're offering, depending on what we could offer. So in 2024, based on what we had planned in 2020, and that was the number that we kind of looked at, we had about $115,000 more in the budget in 2020 than we did in 2024. So it was $1.37 million in total operations for the Aquatic Center in our 2024-2028 plan for 2024. Now, I'm throwing a lot of years here, so apologize for that. Hopefully that's clear. But in 2020, our 2020 plan before COVID shut down everything had 1.47, I believe, for the operations of the Aquatic Center. So that was a difference of about $115,000. So over the years, we've been slowly bringing that up from where we originally were in 2020 back to full operations. And last year, like I mentioned, it was 1.33 or so million dollars, and a difference of about $115,000. based on that 4-year change. So that's the number that we looked at, and I can tell you that off, just quickly here, as far as what we were planning in 2020 versus what actually planned in 2024. Is that helpful to council?
I think that is helpful as a starting point, but I feel like we have sort of an incomplete report to be able to make an informed decision on here. And before I go back to Councillor Patola, just from my own quick look at the financial plans, Echo Aquatic Center programs were in 2021, 510,000, in 2022, 619,000. And actual in 2022 is noted as 688,000. So like 2021 was 2020 and 2021 were the cutback years, then we're up 100 and something thousand from there. And I think like I was quite caught off guard as well by being asked for $110,000 because we hadn't reduced our budget that I was aware of. I don't recall budget decreases for the pool specifically. And we also, I think a couple of times have asked, like there's been a lack of understanding of how we have not received or had not had surplus at the end of the year for the pool when we've had all of the closures as well. And now we're being asked to increase the pool budget in order to get the hours back. And when I take a quick look at the numbers, and albeit I'm not looking at all the lines, but I am looking at the line that I think makes the most sense for this one, it looks like our costs have gone up. So I'm quite unclear, and we can certainly ask our questions, but I think we need a lot more information. In my opinion, it's not a complete report to have in front of us without budget numbers if we're saying that the budget has been reduced and we need to add it back, and without being able to have those budget numbers. So those are not the budget numbers that I see. I don't see a drop looking back the last few years. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for interjecting my thought process quite accurately. And that really is what it comes down to is, although I was going to ask individual questions, but my point is that without knowing more, is this an extra $110,000 or did we reduce during the lean years when staff was less and the hours were less by $110,000 and this is just bringing us back? So I know the Director of Finance has given some expectations of what we're going to be, but I don't see why we can't just have those numbers in front of us, because if we're actually asking for an extra $110,000 above and beyond what's previously been budgeted for the operations of the pool, then my question would be different, and it would be, what are we getting for the extra money? As opposed to, or why do we need the extra money, as opposed to, oh, we're coming back up to normal operations, which as I look at the proposed schedule here, it's still not what I would have, what I recall as being normal operations in the past, but it certainly could be a representation of normal operations for the future. I just need to link that with the extra $110,000. Thank you very much.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll just add my voice in agreement that I was also unclear on the very same things that you're mentioning, and further information would definitely be appreciated before making this decision, just given the place we're at in terms of budgeting and the difficult decisions that we're making right now. It's challenging to see. And acknowledging that this was brought forward based on council requests in the past, and I'm grateful for that. But certainly just hard to make these decisions right now. And yeah, the more complete our understanding of the situation, the better.
Council, so I wonder if we could send this back and just ask for additional information and more detail on the full budget, I think with revenue offsets, because I seem to remember during COVID that I think our revenue offsets went down because we could have less people in the aquatic center at a time as well. So maybe if we can get a year by year of the cost of the aquatic center and sort of what the offerings have been each year, I think like from my perspective, that's what I would sort of need in order to make a discussion. Make a decision. If I go back to 2019, I can see the budget was higher, but it seems like it went drastically down and then it did go up quite a bit. And so I know last year, I think we did intend to do Sundays and then they were canceled partway through the year, I think. And so I just need to see, I need to get a better understanding before, so that we can understand why we're adding $110,000 to the budget. Although I think we want those Sunday services, so balancing all of that. Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to include the stats of the usage. I think that's really important. I value the pool. I know there's a lot of people that are frustrated because they can't get a pool and swimming lessons and stuff. So it'd be great just to add some stats if we can get some stats in there. I think that's going to be important for council.
Yes, Director of Finance, and then we'll go to.
Madam Mayor, I just want to make it clear is that 2020 budget, and I don't think I did, was before we had to make changes. So it was like a version 7 of the financial plan before the adoption, before we made a bunch of changes for 2020, because that was the only year I had to reference that, you know, and I apologize that I didn't get more information to council for you to consider on this one, but it was the only opportunity I had of the 2024 year to compare to what we actually budgeted for 2024 because of the time that has passed. So, but we can most definitely bring back that information so council has that full picture for where everything's at.
Thank you. And it just, what I'm looking at, and so 2020 it looks like was quite low. Understanding there may have been several changes, but it looks like our 2019 budget was 741,000 and the 2024 budget that's already proposed is 729,000, so negligibly different. However, I do recognize that there's more budgets than just the programs and that this is not looking at a complete picture, which I think is just, again, why when we are being asked, when a number is put in front of us, we need to have the complete financial picture in order to be able to be informed in making this decision. So, yeah, we're trying to look at the budget numbers and understand what's included where, because we don't have those numbers. If we could see the full picture, it would be valuable. Okay, Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've noticed that those last-minute closures at the pool due to staffing shortages don't seem to be happening anymore. And also, going back to normal hours pre-COVID is only because you and Sean and Willa have been more creative in scheduling, and you finally got enough staff on trained and hired. So I really want to show my appreciation and say thank you. It's been a difficult few years, so thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, motion for this, maybe just to refer it to our next meeting of council with additional information. Mike?
Yeah, through the chair, would you like it to go to a Cal meeting so there's more discussion?
I don't think that's necessary. I think
okay.
we just want to see the budget numbers. And alongside the budget numbers, I'd like to see like year by year what our actual, I don't know if it's easiest to show that in like hours the pool was open or like number of swimming lessons offered kind of thing, but I think some context to go along with the budgets would be helpful. So I'll just make a motion to bring this back to the next meeting of council with additional budget and pool hour information. Seconded by Councillor Solda, and seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And next item on the agenda is Echo Aquatic Centre and a motion from Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the basis of this motion is just to address the information that was brought forward in the recent facility condition assessment that identified the significant investment that's going to be needed in the coming years in order to keep our current pool functional. The concern there being, of course, that there's an ongoing conversation on the regional level about the potential for a new aquatic center in the possible near or distant future. We're obviously not sure where that's going to land yet. But given that is on the table right now, I don't feel that we should be investing the significant amounts of money into our own pool our current pool, as it might be a waste of funds in order if we end up with a new pool anyways. So if I could just go ahead and read this motion for discussion. Whereas council received the facility condition assessment preliminary financial considerations report at its November 18th committee of the whole meeting, and whereas the regional district is currently exploring the potential construction of a new aquatic facility, which if approved could render any repairs and upgrades to the existing aquatic center unnecessary and potentially wasteful of public funds, therefore be it resolved that maintenance and upgrade projects for the Eco Aquatic Center as outlined in the provisionary capital plan condition assessment be removed or withheld from consideration in the 2025 to 2030 financial plan, and that only essential maintenance required for safety and operational purposes shall be conducted until either a critical infrastructure or equipment failure occurs, or a definitive decision is made by the regional district regarding the new aquatic center, at which point council will reassess the situation. And staff be directed to closely monitor the condition of the Eco Aquatic Center and provide council with regular updates on identified risks and the operational status of the facility.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy, and discussion. Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Solda and Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate the sentiment of trying to hold off, but if tomorrow there was a referendum for a new aquatic facility and it passed, you're looking at probably at least a minimum of 3 years to actually get a new aquatic facility built and up and running. So we can't have system failures. We need to keep that pool up and running for that interim, because if you close the pool until a new one gets built, then we're right back where we started with no staff. You lose your staff, and it takes years to build up your staff again. So that's my concern. You have a brand new aquatic facility with no staff. So why go through that process? So we need to keep that ongoing. And there's no guarantees that a new aquatic facility would be built. The referendum, if it does go to referendum, there could be very possible that it could say no, which would delay the processing even longer. So it makes it more imperative that we continue our upgrades, or not upgrades, but just regular maintenance with the pool in order to keep it open. The only one I would disagree with is the $1,130,000, almost $36,000 in 2028. I think that's excessive, and I don't think I would support that at this point. But the other ones just seem like the pump and piping and UV system, those are pretty basic things that we need to do in order to keep the pool operating for our citizens. So I don't think I can support it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I'm just kind of curious, Madam Mayor, the timeline for referendums. When does the regional district see it going to referendum for a new pool? And like Councillor Haggard has alluded to, it could be 3-4 years. So where are we at that? And then I'm worried. I like the motion, but I'm kind of curious to know, where does the cost start escalating? And what's presented today is not necessarily what it's going to cost in a year or two down the road. So I'm just kind of curious to know where we are. If we put everything on pause for another year, will that work too, till we know a little more where we're going with the regional district?
They were hoping to go to referendum in the fall, but now it's looking like spring. By the conversation from the directors, they're now looking at possibly how much it would cost to do renovations at our existing pool. So that's another avenue that they're looking at the present time.
Thank you for that. And Madam Mayor, through you to the Parks and Rec Director, regarding the pool, my next thing is, if we paused everything for a year, would that do anything? And if so, if not, what kind of costs are we looking at as things go up?
So, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned in the fear-mongering section of the agenda this afternoon, is that the concern is that everything is unknown. So I'm not aware of any facility anywhere on the globe that has a facility our age. So the trouble is, we know that in typical preventative maintenance, that when you hold off on preventative maintenance, it turns sort of repair into replacement is typically how things work. It's really difficult to know. So I couldn't with any certainty say, you know, it was fine to hold off for 12 months or 18 months, but you know, once we hit that 24 to 36 months, we're really going to be in trouble. Again, with the age of the facility, one could argue we're already on multiple decades of borrowed time. So we're not talking about, you know, 5 to 10 years behind. Typically, aquatic centers would last you 25 to 30 years. We're on year 57 with no, so we're essentially double or more than double what you'd have a typical replacement timeline. So essentially we wouldn't know how long we could last as is.
Thank you. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if Director Thorpe could tell us what the impact would be, backtrack a bit, the way that this motion is worded, would that we'd only fix things when there's a critical infrastructure failure. And to me, that would mean that the pool would have to be closed for a significant period of time, like you referred to in your dire warnings from Miss Henny Penny earlier on today. So if there was a critical failure and the pool had to be closed because parts aren't available and they take a long time to come, and then there's the repair process, what would be the effect on our staffing and carrying costs? So would that create a situation, or maybe you could describe the situation it would create, but I'm thinking that we would have staff that wouldn't be able to work. Are we under any obligations to continue paying any of those staff, or depending upon their pay scale or job classifications? And would there then continue to be fixed costs to the pool, such as heating the building or circulating the water while we wait for the new pipe or whatever, when we're not actually having any cost recovery because the pool is closed, even though the cost recovery is only 10%. So I was just interested in what kind of continuing costs there would be during a period of closure. Because then we could sort of balance those costs against the additional costs of being ready for a critical failure and having that pump on hand.
So, Madam Mayor, a few items to touch on there. First of all, some of the sort of most recent data we have when we talk about what's the impact to staff. So yes, there are of course obligations as part of our collective bargaining agreement, and of course we would follow those provisions. We noticed when we had, so further to council's discussion just now, we're talking about the closures with COVID. So when the aquatic center was closed for 6 to 7 months during that period in 2020, we did have difficulties reopening the facility based on staff find other opportunities for work. So difficult to know, again, there's not sort of a pinpoint if we're saying it's a few weeks versus a few months of a closure, when we would need to seek out additional or replacement employees. As far as the facility itself, so we would again, depending on what the infrastructure was that needed to be replaced, we could potentially, an ongoing cost would be to circulate, for instance, untreated water. So not chemically balanced water, perhaps we keep it warm and circulating, again, depending on how long that closure is. We could potentially drain the pool in its entirety and run essentially a small shutdown like we do every year. So our annual shutdowns at this point are 4 to 5 weeks long. So at the time of the failure of that critical infrastructure, we would then make that decision, potentially come to council as well, depending on the scale and scope, and have that conversation outlined for council to say, here's what all the implications are, pros and cons of each, and then make a decision collectively. Do we, like I say, keep the plumbing systems intact and everything going with or without treated water or with or without heated water, and then go from there.
And of course, even then, if we were prepared for some critical failures, we probably could not be prepared for all possible critical failures.
That's correct, yes. So the intent with part of building our 5-year financial plan is so that we start to have, when I mentioned about how we can't go to a local hardware store to have pumps and things on the shelf, our intent, part of being prudent operators, is that we have some of that that infrastructure or that equipment in place or available to us that is custom to us. So yes, Madam Mayor, we would have the ability to respond to some failures, but of course not all. Part of it is we just don't know what we don't know at this stage.
Thank you. I think I'll just add my comments. First of all, I think it's important to note that the motion is worded, in a way that says that basically what's in the provisionary capital plan condition assessment that we received be removed, and then that only essential maintenance required for safety and operational purposes be conducted. And I think that still leaves room for some discussion about what is required. This is not a no more work on Echo Pool kind of motion, in my opinion. That's not how I understand it to be. But if we look in the report that is noted in the motion, there's 5 items listed in there for the 2025 budget. One of them is design fees for CI to C12, I'm not sure, conversion, some kind of conversion. I know nothing about what these things are, and I think that we can assume that none of us on council do, right? But in my opinion, looking through, I think there are some pieces in here that likely are not, just keeping the facility open and just keeping it safe at an absolutely basic level of service kind of approach. I think right now we're going with the approach that we always have, which is we have this old facility. However, we are going to upkeep it to the best that we can and extend the life of it, which is why we are fortunate enough to still have that facility. We've done an excellent job of maintaining it. We've upgraded it as necessary. We've avoided having to do any major updates, obviously, but we've spent a good amount of money on it along the way. What I read the motion as is not stopping that and saying the pool is dead to us, but rather saying maybe it's time to consider we step down the level of renewal that we need to do on that pool. And I think, to some of the questions that Councillor Patola asked, it really is a guessing game of when these things are going to fail. There's, maybe 4 items in here that are replacing different things. Those items were not in our 2024 to 2028 financial plan. Only one of them was. So replace main pool UV system. When we did our budget last year, that was the only thing for the pool that was in the budget for this year. Now we've got 4 additional items. So that could be, noting that we have not had enough time to fully discuss these items yet, so council doesn't have an informed background yet, and also recognizing that would be a normal part of the budget process, that we will get that and that staff will bring it to us, so I'm not criticizing in that way. But it could be that those items can be put in 2026, that, some of them are dire to do now, some of them are not. So I read this as let's do no more upgrades to the system whatsoever. And one of them here is noted as an upgrade for transparency. So let's do no more upgrades, but let's consider, what is absolutely essential to keep it running. And I think that what we're hearing from staff is there's some challenge in that because a lot of it is guesswork. But I just want to, express my support for the motion to some extent. I'm not sure if as it is written is perfect, but I think the intent is to sort of recognize that regardless of whether it's as a result of needing to do a major renovation to the pool or building a new pool, or hopefully not, but shutting down the pool, one of these decisions is kind of looming, and let's not spend money that we may not be able to get value for in the meantime. So I guess I'll let Councillor Dame speak, but that's sort of my understanding of this. And whether we pass this motion today or not, I think this is a really important discussion piece. And we've been having it for years as we have continually, invested money in the pool, saying, but aren't we building a new pool soon? So this year is no different, but maybe it is time for us to take action and step down to some extent the level of work that we are doing on the pool, recognizing a decision needs to be made one way or the other. Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for summarizing a lot of my thoughts behind this motion. I am not naive to the risk here, and I do appreciate the background and the information on the potential implications. The questions and the concerns shared by my fellow councillors are totally valid, and things that I also thought through as well. But this is a situation where none of the options is without risk. Every single one of the things that we're looking at here risks something. And as it currently stands, the risk is that we are going to spend a bunch of money that doesn't result in value for our community. And that personally for me right now is not something that I'm willing to take the risk on. And in fact, I think that that's, given that, as has been stated, our pool is just old beyond any other facility around. It's not going to last. We need some sort of solution. And if that means that we end up having to, for a temporary period of time, close down this pool, I suppose that is a possibility we have to consider. Now, I made this motion with the hope that we would never get to that point, that we've already been, quote unquote, limping it along for a very long time. And I hope that we're able to do that until we get to the point where we're building a new facility. Now, is there some risk that becomes impossible? It sounds like maybe. So now we're looking at a possibility that the pool could become non-functional for a period of time, which is, I think, already a possibility even with our best efforts. Or the other option is that we make sure that it's as bulletproof as it possibly could be, and with a pretty hefty bill attached to that, and it doesn't end up being necessary, within a few years. So, having said all that, I take everything into account. I'm still going to stand by the motion with the wording as is. If somebody else wants to propose an amendment, of course, I think that there's some things that could be wordsmithed here, for sure. And even as Councillor Haggard suggested, it's possible that we could just pick a couple of things out of that list that we want to set aside. But my intention, as the mayor pointed out, was to make sure that everything we're doing is just the bare minimum to try to keep the pool coasting along in its current functionality and service, in the hopes that we don't have to spend a bunch of money, and then someday we'll get something new.
Yeah, and I think that for context, the 2025 capital work that's included in the report is $144,000. So it's not a small amount of money that we're talking about. And I think as difficult as these things are to plan for, we have to recognize that like $144,000 we're probably not going to get the value out of that work, because even if the pool lasts, like, does it last 3 years, 2 years, 5 years? Like, even if it lasts 10 years, to invest $144,000 in it, then $200,000 the next year and $100,000 the year after. I think that these are just, I'm not sure that the motion today is necessarily the right path with the information that we have. I think we need more information, and this might be a motion to potentially even just refer to budget so that we can make it in context of the whole financial plan. But I think that the intent here is recognizing that, you know, we are looking at spending $500,000 in like this year and the next 2 years on a facility that we do not expect is going to last. A part of the conversation might be, you know, what is the future of the facility? If a new pool is not going to be where the current pool is, then maybe there's a lot of value in doing things like the roof and whatever else, because we're still going to have the facility. But there might not be value in replacing the main pool circulating pump. So I think these are really difficult conversations to have. I think at minimum, we need a lot more information. And so maybe the report could be amended to, or sorry, the motion could be amended to say to bring a report on what the potential impacts of this direction could be on the life of the Echo Aquatic Center, which recognize might not be an easy thing to bring, because again, it is somewhat unpredictable. But I think that would at minimum be a starting point for us to get the information we need to be able to make a decision on this. But yeah, it's a lot of money to keep spending on a pool that we don't think is probably going to have a long life ahead of it. I'm going to go to Councillor Haggard, then Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was going to be my suggestion, if we could defer this motion or postpone, whatever the proper wording is. Now I always get confused, until we have a budget meeting, and we could ask Willa to come back with how the importance of each item and what it is. For example, as Mayor Minion said, what is a C12 conversion? How important is it to the keep the pool opening? So maybe if you could get that from you, Willa, on each item, because I'm sure that there's some things in there that we will have to do, and maybe there's some items that we won't have to do. So if we could maybe get that and then bring this back at our budget meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy and then Councillor Patola.
Was that a motion to defer, though? Are we still want to take a...
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Motion to defer.
Then I'll save my conversation for that motion, for that time. I'll second the motion.
Great. Councillor Patola.
So we might be able to recoup a large amount of all these costs by simply getting into the Guinness Book of World Records with a 57-year-old pool. Pools, the Crystal Pool in Vancouver, where I learned how to swim, was built in 1928 and lasted until 1974, only 46 years. It was replaced by the Vancouver Aquatic Center, where I also swam for a great number of years. It was built in 1974. It's 50 years old, not quite our 57. Percy Norman Pool on the east side of Vancouver was 45 years old before it was rebuilt, and the UBC Aquatic Center lasted a grand total of 39 years. The only one that lasted longer was the Empire Games Pool, which was the outdoor pool at UBC that lasted for 68 years, but we must remember was only used in the summertime. So 57 years is a long time. We're on borrowed time. I'd say we're at DEFCON 1 with regards to the pool. And I completely agree with Councillor Dame's notion that we should not be throwing good money after bad into a pool that either will be rebuilt in the site it's at, in which case we may not need to spend all the maintenance on it, will be demolished in the site it's at, in which case we don't need to spend a lot of maintenance on it, or may be replaced with another pool in a different site, in which case we don't need to spend a lot of maintenance on it. And so now that I've recounted my history of swimming, let me recount my history of cars. The first car I had, eventually, when it came to me, it probably wasn't that great, but eventually there comes a point in time when you have to say, am I going to put more money into this, or should I just sell it for what I can get for it? Unfortunately, pools aren't on wheels, and they need more than just the oil changed. But in saying that, I fully agree with Councillor Dame that there is a decision time, and we're approaching that. And perhaps with something large like a pool, that decision time might not be a specific date, but can be over a period of time where we reduce the large expenditures and continue with the smaller expenditures to keep the thing running. That seems to be an operational issue and a type of policy that council could set. The second part of the motion, the staff be directed to closely monitor the condition of the Echo Aquatic Center. I'm sure they do already, but perhaps council could more closely monitor the condition or have more fulsome reports so that when it does come to budget time, because I think this is probably an item or discussion for budget, is what specific costs are we going to approve and what costs are we not going to approve for a budget. It gets to be a little bit nitpicky and into the nitty gritty that council probably shouldn't be exercising those decisions in managing the facility, because it really does come down to that. But I think that given the particulars of this circumstance, dealing with a pool, that is what it is, and it's hard to make it anything else very quickly, right? Construction takes time, decisions take time. That perhaps the pool is a subject matter that needs a more hands-on approach with greater information being provided to council so council can make the budget decisions they need to in pursuing a policy of restraint, but happy, playful, splashing wood in the water restraint.
Thank you, Councillor Patola. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, just listening to Councillor Patola and going back to outdoor pools, we did have an outdoor pool. There was a reason why we closed that outdoor pool, and much to many people in the community's dismay, that it was closed. And I'm sure it was very similar costs, staffing the whole bit. And I have no reason, I was a teenager back then, but we did have one and we did close one. So what do we want to do here? And I'll be interested to see the report in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
One more, Madam Mayor, just because my colleague across the way talked about cars, and it's a good way to look at this, is doesn't matter what we're going to do next in getting a vehicle, we need to keep driving today or walking across town. So we really got to be sure with what we're doing here with this facility before we decide how we're going to go to the next facility. And the next facility, if it's, in the positive, would still be a couple of years away. So my understanding is we're going to have that pool open until the day the new pool opens up. If the new pool, so I would suggest that maybe upgrade projects would not be part of it, but definitely still keep on maintenance.
Thank you. Council, so we do have a motion to postpone this item and bring it forward at budget. And I would just add to that, if the mover is okay, with additional information so that Willa could bring back a report on sort of what this option would look like. Are there any further comments on this piece? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, and item number 4, we have 3250 9th Avenue, and this is from Councillor Dane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the same vein as the last motion, brought forward in the provisionary capital plan condition assessment report that we received, another facility that is going to need considerable work in the coming years is the building, the old arena at 3250 9th Avenue. And I have given this a lot of thought, and I think that we need to give a serious look at the future of this building and exactly what we're able to invest in it in order to get the community the best value. And with that, I will make the motion. Whereas council received the facility condition assessment and preliminary financial condition considerations report at its November 18th committee of the whole meeting, and whereas the existing 5-year capital plan does not include any funds for improvements related to the capital repairs of the old civic complex located at 3250 9th Avenue, as identified in the provisionary capital plan condition assessment, and noting that the proposed tax increase for 2025 currently stands at 15.63%. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs administration to prepare a report outlining the history of the old civic complex at 3250 9th Avenue, along with potential options for council to consider aimed at minimizing fiscal investment in the building.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will agree with you on this one, Councillor Dame. This was a building that was scheduled to be demolished over 20 years ago once the new multiplex opened, and the Industrial Heritage Society stepped up at the last minute and saved it from demolition and said this would be a perfect building for us. So I don't see us putting this kind of money into a building that was supposed to be demolished over 20 years ago. And I believe at the committee of the whole meeting, I did ask staff to potentially start looking for another location that they could put all these old, because some of these vehicles are owned by us, by the city. So we need to look for another location that they can go to and in order to house not only their work, but our assets as well. So I think that would be good to give an alternative here. And I don't see the why we need a report outlining the history. We all know the history. It used to be the old arena, and then it changed to the Industrial Heritage Society. So I don't think we need to get staff to do a report, but maybe let's look towards the future. Where can we put the Industrial Heritage Society and the vehicles located inside? But I agree with everything else. I still put more money into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Patola.
I agree with Councillor Dame and Councillor Haggard, with the exception of the report issue that I fall somewhere in the middle. I think it would be helpful, again, for any further decision to at least know our costs, not since the beginning of when it was built, but possibly from the point in time when it was scheduled for demolition forward, to know how much money we have put into it, so we know kind of what our sunk costs are and the amount of life we got out of that, and therefore we have a lens to view further investments into it through. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll add to that information that I'd like to see is what the annual operating cost is, because I believe we pay the utilities of that building per the lease agreement that we have, and there might be other costs that we're responsible for as well. I'm not sure if all of council has the full picture of the operating costs. Councillor Solda.
And Madam Mayor, I do believe the history is important on this building for the public. There's a lot of new people in the community that have no idea what we're talking about and the history of, and I think it's really important. That has to be included in there.
Thank you. Councillor Dame and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thanks through you to Councillor Solda. That was the intent of including the history there. I personally am indifferent to whether or not the report includes a history of the building, but given that this is a public process, and I just thought that it would be helpful to the community to some at least, to potentially have some history and background on the building.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is over $1 million to replace the Kearney roof in the year 2030. I think instead of putting that $1 million towards a new roof, I think we need to start looking at perhaps a new curling center, whether it's located next to a multiplex or in some kind of different location. We need to start planning ahead for a new facility for that as well. It's just too old in that building, and I don't want to put $1 million into that building.
Thank you. And I would just agree completely as well. And again, looking at the costs in the assessment report that we did have, it schedules $301,000 for the Industrial Heritage Center in renewal and investigation for 2025, and another $475,000 in 2026. I think these numbers are just not affordable to us, especially for what I would call a valuable but non-core service for the city in a facility that we intended to demolish. And I will just say that, you know, I've seen us get into a position before where we had a building that we no longer wanted, we donated it. well, we kept ownership of it, but we let someone else utilize it. And then years later, we ended up with, costs that are hundreds of thousands of dollars where we never intended to have that, but we didn't come up with a plan soon enough. And so while, again, these may be hard discussions to have, there are a lot of people who I think highly value this building and what it brings to the quality of life for themselves personally and in value to the city and residents in getting to engage with the industrial heritage assets. It is not a cost that is affordable for us in the grand scheme of where we're at with budget. So I do think that we need to look at options, and ultimately options are probably the demolition of that building and then repurposing and seeing if there's somewhere else that we are able to house the assets and activities that go on within there. But appreciate Councillor Dane bringing this forward, and I think it's an important discussion to start having on this building and probably other ones as a result of just some of the costs upcoming. Councillor Dane and then Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, and I do think it's important to acknowledge that this is going to be a hard thing to hear for a lot of people in the community who, as you say, value that building, value what its purpose, what its use has been for the last 20 years. These are just the difficult choices that we're faced with, and I hope that the community understands that as we make decisions like this, the intention isn't just to cut things and move on. It's to work with groups to try to find solutions so that we can provide best value to the community and continue to support the things that are important to the community, but it just has to be in a way that is fiscally responsible and makes sense for the taxpayers of Port Alberni.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I also believe that we should have some kind of report regarding the Industrial Heritage Society after 20 years of being a tenant in and looking after the city's collection, and hopefully will continue to do so. Their opinion, I believe it's really important to hear from them, and either they come in person or something engaged through our manager and go from there, our director. And I think it's important that they are part of this discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
I want to ensure that the Industrial Heritage Society realize the importance that they contribute to this community and how much I appreciate them. I've volunteered for their programs up there. They are very valued in our community, so I don't want to dismiss that at all. The only reason that I'm saying this is I don't want to put money into an old building that was scheduled to be demolished, and I think you can find other alternatives for this very important group in our community.
Thank you. Any other comments, Council? Okay, so on the motion to bring forward this report, all in favor? Thank you. Carried, none opposed. And moving on to item number 5. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really quickly, so this is about the rink board replacement. I do receive a remuneration as a volunteer from the Bulldogs, and just because I was the chair at the last meeting when this came up, there was a primary discussion about the rink boards in general for all users, but since then the Bulldogs have contacted myself and contacted staff, and after some deliberation, I feel that the right thing to do is to remove myself from the conversation at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Mealy. So we'll just wait a moment while you exit. Thank you. And I will go to our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture for an overview on the multiplex rink board replacement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So our current rink board system on the primary sheet of ice, known as the Weyerhaeuser Rink at the city-owned multiplex, is at the end of its chronological life. So the project is included in our approved 5-year financial plan. Staff are suggesting proceeding with replacing the infrastructure as listed in the recommendation on page 113 of the agenda package. So there's a bulleted list there of all the components. And staff's priority is to ensure we can replace the rink boards within the available time window this spring while still being able to host the West Coast Hockey Prep Camp this summer.
Thank you very much. Council, questions?
I'd like to move that council direct staff to proceed with issuing a request for proposals for the following infrastructure on the primary sheet warehouser at the Alberni Valley Multiplex in the spring of 2025. Replace all rink dasher boards and kick plates. Replace all acrylic glass and fasteners on the front of rink boards. Replace all perimeter glass 5 feet in height to 6 feet in height and install corresponding stanchions. Install a custom double door at the corner adjacent to the home team's bench. Clean perimeter vertical glass to like new condition. Recertification of all components by the contractor who installed the original rink boards.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Okay, I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Comments, Councillor Solda.
So I'll second it for discussion. Where I want to go with this is, now I have been explained, somebody has explained it to me, but the public will not have heard the same explanation. So we got like the rink board, the kick plates, the acrylic glass, and we know that's up there right now, and the scorekeeper's box, all these things that have to be replaced. So they're still there. So why do we have to replace it? And that's what the public needs to know. Why are we doing it when we have all this?
So, Madam Mayor, like any infrastructure, after decades of use of wear and tear, there's a requirement to replace. So at this stage, one of the challenges we've been working through, for instance, is that the screws that affix, so the acrylic glass, or we would call it Lexan is the industry term, that is the cover between the white plate that you see, then you'll see the advertisements, and then you see the acrylic glass on top. Those screws start to back out over time. There's only so many times we can replace those screws in those same locations before we get to a spot where we have to replace. When we don't replace those screws, one situation that occurs as well is a risk of injury. So players or referees skating by a screw that is backed out has the opportunity to catch on their uniform or their pants or that type of thing and cause injury as well. So, Madam Mayor, this is a standard replacement as we would do in any facility. I'll also bring Council's attention on page 114 of your agenda package. It outlines some of the options there. So the option that staff are suggesting is replacing the boards themselves, retaining the steel structure. So one option would be to replace everything, including the steel structure, and starting completely new. As it indicates in the notes there what the impact to budget and timing would be on that. Staff is of the mind that we have the ability here to replace the rink boards, have everything safe without having to replace the system in its entirety. When we reference vertical glass, so for council's reference as well, the vertical glass is actually tempered glass as opposed to the acrylic glass is what covers the advertisements. By replacing the 5-foot vertical glass on the sides of the rinks with 6-foot glass, it would increase the safety of that space as well. So what staff are trying to do is balance. We're hearing council loud and clear that we're trying to balance spending with being creative as well, as opposed to just replacing systems in their entirety. This would be an example of that.
So you're not gonna like this one. Okay, so I know if the screw is coming out, you make another hole and you screw in the screw, right? Can you not do the same thing? I know that sounds, you probably can't, but that's just how I would do it, you know, like.
So, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned, there's an opportunity to do that to an extent. At some point, you run out of real estate on the boards to be able to do that. But rest assured, we do everything we can with the infrastructure we have.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say that I thought that this particular submission was excellent. I like all the different options that were laid out in it, and I have certainly myself come to an understanding that whenever I'm in a position to say, oh, those people are so stupid, it's so easy, why don't they just do this? Generally, it's not easy, they're not stupid, and their suggestions should be followed. So I fully support the motion.
Thank you. And I thought the report was excellent as well, and it laid out the options really well. I just want to ask for, because it has been asked of a few of us by the Bulldogs, that obviously their preference was for one of the larger replacements, and it does say here cost prohibitive, so recognize that. Do we have a rough idea of what that cost prohibitive is, so that council and the community has a bit of a scale. Are we talking about like a difference of $20,000 or a difference of $200,000, for instance?
So, Madam Mayor, just so we're all on the same page, I believe you're referring to the idea of replacing the current tempered glass with seamless glass around. So again, so everyone's clear, we're talking about those vertical panels of glass that are above the boards. So as I've outlined in the report here, under the implications, that option 3, which is with that idea of replacing with seamless glass, would definitely, I'm quite confident, would put us outside of our replacement window. So meaning that we wouldn't have the ability necessarily to complete that work this spring. As far as the cost implications, I would predict that would be at least $50,000 above the stated budget, could be into the hundreds or more. Since we have not yet gone to the request for proposal stage, it's difficult to have razor sharp numbers. So obviously we're able to prepare a budgetary quote for council or have some idea of costs, but until we go to request for proposals and receive those definitive numbers from potential contractors, it's difficult to know with absolute certainty what those numbers might be. Just to give council the possible next question of why can't we get those specific numbers from contractors? You can imagine that as a business owner, when you're bidding on a job that may not come to fruition, you want to be careful and protect yourself as well, that you don't give an absolute razor sharp price. We say, oh, this business is offered at this price. We want to follow our proper, of course, public process.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you. Just to follow up to Councillor Solda's comments and questions, I just want to reinforce this is not a beautification issue. This is a safety issue. For anybody who plays hockey on that rink, it is becoming extremely unsafe for all the players and has gotten to the point where teams don't want to come in and play on the ice anymore. So this is a safety issue. We've already put it off for 2 years. Because it is safety, we can't put it off any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe the motion was moved and seconded. Wonderful. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Carried. Thank you very much for the report and information. And if somebody would find Councillor Mealy, that would be lovely. He found us. Great. All right, we will move on to item number 6, and this is recognition of service policy.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The report in your package provides Council with an updated draft recognition of service policy. The city's recognition of service policy provides the framework for how our employees are recognized for their years of service to the city. It outlines the milestones that employees are recognized for, as well as the form of recognition that they receive for the different milestones that are outlined. The city's current policy provides recognition to employees when they have achieved 10 years of continuous service with the city, and again at every subsequent 10 years of service achieved, as well as upon reaching the big milestone of 25 years of service. The policy also currently provides recognition to employees upon their retirement from the city. Current policy has not been updated since 2008, and some of the processes outlined in it are not current. The proposed draft policy includes no changes to the different milestones for which employees are recognized, nor to the value of the recognition provided. It includes updates to the processes and also includes recognition for councillors who have achieved 10 years of continuous service. As noted, staff is recommending that the recognition of service policy dated September 30th, 2008 be rescinded, and that council approve the recognition of service policy draft number 3002-7.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll make those motions. I move that council rescind the recognition of service policy dated September 30th, 2008.
Moved by Councillor Dame, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And I move that council approve recognition of service policy number 3002-7.
Moved by Councillor Dame, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Easy, thank you. Great report. Item number 7, we have third quarter 2024 procurement summary. Thank you. And just before we go to the report here, I will just note that I have to leave, unfortunately, for a commitment. So as planned, Councillor Mealy is Deputy Mayor and will be taking over the rest of the meeting as Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On to you, Mr. McGivern.
Thank you, Chair Mealy. So with the report in front of Council today, this is just a summary of the third quarter of 2024 for procurement. We've gotten to the point now where we do this every quarter, and you'll see this moving forward. So if there's any questions of Council, I'm here to answer if possible.
Thank you, Mr. McGivern. Any questions from Council? Councilor Patola.
Move that council receive the report third quarter 2024 procurement summary dated November 11th, 2024.
So moved by Councilor Patola, seconded by Councilor Solda. And again, thank you very much to the Director of Finance for putting this through. I've had a few people in the community that really enjoy seeing this, so that's great. I really appreciate this transparency. Any comments or questions? Anything else on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have MMBC Recycling Incorporated, Recycle BC Master Service Agreement. Director of Finance.
Thank you, Chair Mealy. So we do have a renewal for the Statement of Work and Master Service Agreement, and this agreement provides the incentives to collect recycles within the community. Currently, it does approximately cover the cost of delivering the recycling service, so it's good to have this. It is a great incentive that supports the diversion of materials to recycle rather than to the landfill, and it's just the continuance of the program that we are delivering. So we're seeking Council's approval to support the renewal of this agreement.
Any questions from Council or a motion? Councilor Haggard, then Councilor Solda, or Councilor Dame.
May I read the motion?
Of course you can.
I'd like to move that council authorize the mayor and the corporate officer to enter into the master services agreement with MMBC Recycling, Inc. for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2025 and expiring December 31st, 2029 for the purpose of collecting curbside recycling materials within the city.
Second by Councilor Dame. Any comments? No? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Director of Finance. Next, we have a report from the Director of Corporate Services for the appointment of Deputy Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Chair Mealy. So the Community Charter requires assignment of the responsibility of corporate administration, which includes a number of powers, duties, and functions. As Director of Corporate Services, I presently fulfill the role of Corporate Officer. Today's report requests that Kim Modiak, the city's new Deputy Director of Corporate Services, be appointed as Deputy Corporate Officer for the City of Port Alberni to fulfill the responsibility of corporate administration during vacation, leaves, or other absences of the corporate officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Corporate Services. Council, do you have any questions? I know we met earlier, but this is the official now, so Councilor Dame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to make that motion. I move that Council appoint Kim Modiak, Deputy Director of Corporate Services, as Deputy Corporate Officer to fulfill the responsibility of corporate administration in accordance with Section 148 of the Community Charter for the City of Port Alberni during vacation, leaves, or other absences of the appointed corporate officer effective November 25th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Councilor Haggard, the seconder. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Was there any other late items? No, I didn't think so. Sorry, don't mind me chairing halfway through. Now it's time for question period, an opportunity for the public to ask questions of council on decisions or recommendations made during the course of today's meeting. A maximum of 3 questions will be permitted per first speaker. For those participating electronically, please use the raise your hand feature. Do we have anybody in public who would like to ask a question? Absolutely, come up to the mic, sir. Press the button. Red is good. Just state your name and where you're from and fly at her.
My name's Mike, and I'm from Port Alberni. Second council meeting, and Your agenda today did talk about the pool again, like I heard last time. You've got your hands full, boys, between multiplex and pools and everything, and the grocery list it's big, hey? So, there's nothing more that I would love to have a brand new pool, like big time, eh? But I always look at things what I think are a really realistic way of thinking, and myself personally, what can I afford? What do I want? What I can't afford, right? Since I've been in this town, I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of the talk is about time taxes come out. And I listen to a lot of people crying if their taxes go up 5%, eh? Last I heard about the pool was it's escalated in price as the months and months go by, and we're up somewhere close to $100 million. I understand putting money into a dead horse. I got a 16-year-old truck, okay? But I probably put $3,000 a year in it, okay? That's better than that $80,000 new truck. The pool, I know it could cost us money. It costs us, you know, to keep it open. Yes, it's like anything. My motor can blow tomorrow. But you know what? I'll spend $6,000 on a motor. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And I look at it, I would like to know more how the council works and that, and I'd like to get some numbers from the finance department on how much money they spent on that pool for their regular maintenance in the last 5 years. That would not even be the interest on a $100 million loan. Like you said, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. It, like, in the real world, like, you know, that's just a lot of money. And for taxpayers, we don't seem to want, the regional district doesn't want to get in on board with it. I just can't see that a debt ever being paid off, even if the federal government give us $40 million.
My apologies, Mike, and I hate to cut you off.
I'm too long?
No, it's not that's too long, sir. It's question period. Do you have a question? So you did have a question on, you'd like to know the numbers on the last 5 years of pool operation,
Yeah,
which I believe will come forward as part of
So
the board.
in other words, then, what I want to do is, because I said I'm starting new at the council, I'd like to get involved in some of this somehow where I can put my opinions, like on Mr. Dames and Patella, and that, it's all good. And this is where we maybe can come to some kind of, you know, a reasonable thing. But yeah, that's one thing. And I only got 3 minutes too, so.
You just got 3 questions, so I'll let you go if you have 3 questions.
Well, I know my preference is fix the multiplex over the pool. You know, I use the pool 4 days a week. You know, there's not really a payback on the pool at all. The multiplex does support itself, right? Pretty much. So, you know, X number of dollars to fix the boards, to me, that's money better spent than maybe something into the pool. But if you need it, you need it, right? We can't not fix it if we need to fix it. But the cost there, the cost is something that is what it's going to cost us. Might be a hurricane one day or earthquake and the whole thing collapses anyway. No, but really, we got to look at you know, what's going on now, eh? Things are crazy, eh? And the money's not free anymore. So that's all I got to say. But thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, and it is councils. It will be a struggle for this council and future councils as well to get a grasp on this and do what's right for the community first. So thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else either online or in public? Mr. Randall, sir, come on up. Heavy on the mister.
Yeah, in regards to the pool, and I hear the age, you know, of the pool seems to be the biggest thing. And that really doesn't tell me the whole story. That pool probably was built with some of the very best materials because there was a lot of money in this community at that time. So my question would be, has anybody really looked deeply into the structure of the pool, the basic structure? Is the foundation good? Are the walls good? Are the beams and the ceiling good? The other stuff, yeah, that can be replaced. You can replace electrical or pump systems, filter systems, that sort of thing. So that's kind of my question, to extend the life of the pool, because, you know, we're talking referendums and regional district putting money in, and I see that if it's ever going to happen, it's someplace way in the future. So anyway, that's kind of my question.
Thank you, Mr. Randalls, and I would appreciate that because Councillor Dame's motion that came forward probably will be part of that motion coming forward, or part of that report coming forward. Of course, staff at all times, you know, takes care of our facilities and monitors our facilities. So if there was a roof replacement, let's just say on the pool that needed to come up, and we would see it in the 5-year financial plan. So, you know, 1967, it's a long time ago, and I mean, only truly a Toronto Maple Leafs fan would know what that year is all about, so, and how long that's been. But the mere fact is we still need that facility to operate until we have another plan, whether it be the regional district come forward with a new pool or something else. So I appreciate that, and I would hope that your question would be answered when the report comes forward, sir. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to? Go ahead, Joseph, please.
Hi, my name's Joseph. I live here in Port Alberni, and I would say new is not always better. We have something in front of us that bears witness of that, some big beams. Okay, there was things built really well at one time, so that's just a comment. You have evidence right in front of us. Another question regarding the, I'm from a community that has originally, where I was born and raised, has a skating rink that is utilized by the local community, seniors that play hockey, youth that play hockey, kids that come out and do figure skating, all kinds of things. That was built in the 40s. I think it still has its original boards on it. But it's not used by a hockey team like the Bulldogs. That's fast-paced, very aggressive play. It's a very different thing. So with that in mind, if that was just a rink that's utilized by the public for the things like I've said this old skating rink is used for, would it be needful for those changes? And if not, if it's related to the Bulldogs themselves, because they're here and they're part of our community, and everybody, a lot of people really love the Bulldogs, love the games, it's a big part of our community. But if that's the reason, is because of the fast play and the injuries that happen because of it, what responsibility do the Bulldogs have towards those costs? And I don't know if they, I might be stepping on a few toes even saying that, but I'm just curious because it's put on the community to look after that. So that's one question. What are they willing to step up to and say, hey, we can, because we're here, we love the community, we want to stay here, but we also want to contribute to what it's costing the community? Question. Okay.
Not sure any of us can answer that at this point.
Yeah.
But we'll keep that in mind, and I'm sure that the Bulldogs will have their own opinion on what happened today as well. So,
and if they see me in the street, I hope they're pleasant to me.
I think they'll be pleasant to you. So, thanks, Joseph.
Thank you.
Sorry, apologize, Councillor Hager. Go right ahead.
Being a hockey mom for many years, it's not just the Bulldogs that play competitive hockey. There's many rep teams that are in town, and we have many rep teams coming from out of town to play. So if you haven't seen any of the rep teams play, they're very competitive. They play just as hard as the Bulldogs and the Bombers do. So it's even for men to play, like the men's league, they go into the boards and they get injured as well. So it's not just the Bulldogs.
Thank you. Good point. Thank you. Also, just another quick comment to where I came from. The pool's as old as ours, if not older, and still being used a lot. So again, there's what works. So my second question is related to, I keep bringing up questions kind of related to budget, but they're not really budget questions, even though they appear so. We heard from last committee of the whole meeting, and we've heard it today. Part of the comments is that things have changed. Tax base has changed a lot. Used to be some rather large companies that contributed to that. That's gone. And that a lot more emphasis or pressure is put on the residents of Port Alberni. And so now for things that are being changed, added to, fixed, repaired, kept, come back to the taxpayer mostly. And so let me gather my thoughts. But so with that is, so that base is sort of is gone. And tax base has changed. It's gone back to the taxpayer more so, the residents of Port Alberni, which I think we've heard is in the neighborhood of, 19,000 people. That's not changing a lot. It may be some growth, but not a lot. So that's kind of the stagnant sort of number. There's no real changes on that. And so the question I'm going to lead up to it, but so the questions I've asked about the SOMAS lands and the costs of remediation, insurance costs. I've asked about that. I've asked about the costs of maintaining our new trail system annually. What's that going to, again, it sounds like a budget cost. I've asked about, and it's been brought up, new costs being put on people for the use of the sports fields and facilities going up. Licenses requirement now to to operate in some of these facilities for something that has been very little cost or no cost in the past. So all these things are adding costs to everything. They're all being put back on the taxpayer. And people of the community that live and work and live here, play here, do everything here. And my question is sort of related to the SOMAS lands, the trail system, because of the extra costs. You've taken a limited amount of funds coming in. You've spread them a lot thinner, really thin, because the cost, the initial cost of purchase the land, the initial cost of doing the trail and then maintaining it, you can look at those. You've all looked at them. You see they're, 7 million, 5 million. There's still $1 million left here. There's 800,000 left here. So my point is taxes are going up 15 to 16%. All the costs are being put onto community involvement, whether it's the sports fields, whether it's the Glenwood Center. By the way, that was supposed to be torn down a number of years ago also. So there's extra costs being put on community things that are taking place in there. Licenses, you have to have a license now to be a vendor here. Those are extra costs. So I know you're looking for money to now fund other things. And so I think, although it seemed like a budget question regarding the SOMAS lands and the costs and the pathway and its costs, my real question is, how have, and will council acknowledge this, that part of the reason the costs are having to go up on all these things is because of the funds that are being spread out now to SOMAS and a trail system. Is that part of the reason? I won't ask for a percentage of why that's contributing to the extra cost for taxes and the extra cost for now trying to get funds for community events, sports fields, that sort of things. I won't ask for a percentage. How much do you think it's putting pressure on having to increase taxes and costs? So I won't ask that, but I will ask you a simple question. Has it, as mayor and council, and mayor's not here at the moment, but has it contributed to the need for all of these extra things being put on? And I think the answer would be a simple yes, but, so that's my question. Has it contributed to that need for these things to try and get extra funds from places that in the past haven't been? The taxation always goes up, but the cost to the community to do things has remained kind of stable, and there's a need for a cost for that too, but it seems like there's a lot of pressure being put on that's causing things to be questioned, perhaps, being forced to shut down or that sort of thing. So that's the question. How do you feel, and would you say yes, that has definitely contributed to the need for our extra costs and taxes and costs going up for our facilities and use of them? Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the mayor too much, but I think in my regard, it's more of a generalization of we have a certain amount that we have to budget for, and there's only a certain revenue streams that a council can go after. Taxation, fees, donations, if you'd like to donate. I mean, we'll take anything at this point. But it's just a matter of, so would ongoing maintenance of a new facility create an increase to the budget? Yes, it would. Staff has been tasked many times to find a way to counteract those expenditures. When we talk about facilities such as, like, I remember the multiplex when it was first built, and the multiplex was recovering about 70% of the operational cost, and that was really good. Like, when a municipality runs a facility such as a pool, such as an arena, such as a library, it's not done to create money. It's done because it's for the community, and a lot of times the community has to pay for it, or the city loses money in those ventures. So, the short answer is yes. Anything that's added to the budget on an operational cost or operational for the year will cost the taxpayer. But staff, I believe, has done a good job in trying to find other revenue streams and trying to up the charges and the fees as well to a point where we can recover some more costs and it's not put all on one taxpayer, whereas the people, kind of a user fee in the way of the pools, and we're still going to go back to the Parks and Recreation fees and go over that again, but that's going to a user pay rather than have the entire community pay for it. So I hope that answers your question. Like I said, maybe the mayor has a different answer, but that would be my take on it.
Yeah, good, thank you. So with that, yeah, so with that, it's a challenge for staff and council to come up with new ideas and move forward without putting the extra pressure. That is huge, because you do want to move forward. Some things, as I say, it's like, oh, the wants and the needs, right? I really need this, or I want this, the wish list. That's a tough one, because you're projecting, in a sense, you're saying this will pay for itself in the long. It's a bit of a gamble. It is, but that's a decision that you kind of make. I have a house that I maintain and look after. I would love a new kitchen, but the reality is that's a wish list. It's not what I can do. So I'm maintaining what I have, and I think it looks great. It's taking a little bit of labor and extra work, but instead of thousands of dollars, it's costing me a few $100s. And so that's the reality of it. I know that's pressure, and thank you for the job you guys do, because it's not easy, because these are things, as I say, you want to see a community move forward, you want to build, but there's a time and a place. It's not like Field of Dreams. You build it and they will come. Yeah, not always the case. It sounds good, it looks good, but the reality is you have a small community until it starts to grow and come to a place where it's healthier, thriving a bit more, and I think we are, but there comes a place where we say we can now do those things. And just looking in the future, when things are coming forward, I would love to see some sort of a process that says, hold on a minute, let's ask and find out when, and what can we do without putting a lot of pressure on the community. And thank you. So thanks again.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I can concur, I'd like the new kitchen, but I'm gonna be doing my own faucet. I'd like a brand new truck to drive home in, and I'm gonna get my 07 Edge with 275,000 K and drive home today. The CAO, did you wanna have a comment? Or Councillor Dame? Councillor Dame, did you wanna talk?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Joseph. I think what you've presented is actually quite a complicated question and a complicated answer, despite your hope that it was a simple yes. And I think that if you want a simple answer from me, it's actually going to be closer to a no. However, there's layers to it, of course. And so when you're asking, I think you're pinpointing at two particular city initiatives, projects that you're wondering if these are the things driving the need to increase taxes. Yeah, sure. To a degree. Everything contributes, right? I would say they are not significant drivers of the tax increase. They are factored in, but there are much, much larger things that are the real drivers behind these things. And it's very easy for people to sort of identify and fixate on a couple of things that maybe they have problem with. And I understand that. The fact is that there are many things that the city does that have been doing for decades that other people might not really be interested in. Maybe you're not into curling, and here we have a curling facility. Just as an example, maybe you're not into softball, and yet we have many fields that are utilized for softball. So I think there's a lot more to it than just saying, well, creating this pathway was a significant driver of the need to increase taxes, because that was something that is of value to the community, maybe not to every community member, but certainly a significant portion. And as an aside, a good majority of it was paid for by provincial grants, which is not going to affect taxes. And actually, it's past budget year items, so it's actually not contributing to the current budget as well, though I get that things have ripple effects, right? So, and I think that that's, you know, if you want to be truly transparent, sure, things carry on to forward years, even if they're not on the current financial plan. But yeah, I hope it's making sense. What I'm saying is that these are a couple of projects, and I believe the SOMAS property was actually pulled from land reserve to pay for, which somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, which then again would not be affecting taxation, and the hope is that that's going to come back to the community as well, right? So a lot of the decisions we have to make are very long term in scope, and it's easy to make these short term emotional decisions out of fear, out of I mean, you know, genuine empathy for what the taxpayers are going through, and I think that's what we're facing right now is some really challenging things that we have to balance these long-term implications of our decisions with the very real day-to-day you know, living expenses that people are facing. And then we've got issues of inflation that are driving up the city's costs, and we're trying to provide the same service to a community when our costs are going up here at the city, right? I'm saying I'm a member of the community as well. So, but everybody, all of our expenses are going up, and the city's no different. So it's a complicated situation. Where I think that we just have to keep in focus that, turn my mic off there for a second, accidentally. I think we have to keep in focus the importance of, when you see council making decisions, it is with that long-term perspective, hopefully, and it is with taking a lot of different conflicting preferences and needs and wants into consideration. And but again, just to stay focused on your question, I don't feel that either of those things are a significant driver of the increase. But sure, a small one, a small contributor, just like every other service and project that the city has going on right now to varying degrees. So yeah, hopefully that was a little rambling, but hopefully that got to the core of your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Dan. Joseph, did you have any more? Sorry, sir.
No, just thank you. And it's sort of like an analogy of the car thing. I was thinking of a piece of bread and butter. If I've got a teaspoon of butter and I've got a slice of bread, that covers it pretty good. But if I get a pizza crust and try and spread that teaspoon of butter on there, it's not going very far. That's just kind of, yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Mr. CIO, if you like.
Yeah, thanks. And through the chair, I just wanted to refer the public and Joseph to a few reports. The OCP does show that our city is increasing in population and projects to increase. And I invite everybody to come out to the Committee of the Whole coming up on the housing needs assessment. And it talks about some of the needs that are dire in the next few years for housing, which shows population growth in Port Alberni is increasing. Last year, we did have an increase in our light industrial, which council considered the tax share options into reducing the overall residential tax class. And so you can go back and see that there is not just a decrease in industrial. There has been in heavy industrial, but in the light industrial category, we are attracting. And I know our economic development officer is working hard on trying to diversify that, so we aren't single resource dependent moving forward. And then also, if you look at the 10-15 year report that the CFO provided, it does have on there the CPI for construction costs, which vary between, I think it's around 2% and upwards of 7% some years, even when CPI remained close to zero and up to, 3 to 5% throughout some of the years. So when we look at that through an asset management lens, which a lot of municipalities only started to look at in the last 5+ years. And as we start to amortize and put away reserves for that, it's important on the life cycle. So a lot of municipalities right now are caught in this infrastructure crisis where we didn't build up the reserves to replace or to repair some of the facilities that we have that are aging out. So a lot of them, and it's hitting Port Alberni right now. But it's a common issue that has been happening because those practices weren't followed way back, because we only deal with information we're knowing the best practices of the time. So it's not, I think council of the day and administration of the day made the decisions they had with closure of big industry and that. And I think council's trying to work on how do we balance that as the economy here in Port Alberni shifts and changes, and what does that shifting demographic want and need. And so I think I would agree with Councillor Day and Amelie that it is a complex question you asked with not just a simple yes or no answer.
Thank you, Mr. Fox, appreciate it. And the the Committee of the Whole Housing Needs Report is on December the 3rd at 6 o'clock right here at the council chambers, so feel free to show back up. Anybody else that would, anybody online? No? Anybody in public that hasn't spoken, ask questions? No? Yeah, seeing none, move to adjourn. Someone? Councillor Solda, second. Councillor Dame, all those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. It is 3:54.